And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of like, well, we have this huge game we want to make. No one's willing to fund it, so we'll just sort of do it intermittently in between stuff when we have downtime. And that was a really bad way to make a game because there was a lot of stopping and starting and
Yeah, and you
context
lose
switching.
so much time there, like so much. Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we unpack the messy, beautiful intersection of creativity and business with the artists, marketers, and founders shaping our culture. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Tim Thompson, founder of RevThink, Chris Hewish of Zola, and Cheryl Platts, author of the Game Development Strategy Guide. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of this podcast, and we are always open to more sponsors that align with our brand. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a strategic creative studio helping brands turn big ideas into unforgettable animated content, campaign visuals, and story-driven creative that actually connects and turns viewers into fandom. We work with the best brands in gaming, entertainment, tech, and pop culture to make their ideas feel bigger, clearer, and harder to ignore. So if your brand has a campaign, launch, pitch, or story that needs to stand out, visit epicmade.net and let's make something epic. All right, so with us today, we have Ryan Canuel. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here, Carl.
Super pumped. This is going to be a fun one. All right, so Ryan is the CEO and co-founder of Petricore. He founded in 2015, building a game and interactive studio focused on emerging platforms, particularly AR and VR. His team is known for creating immersive mixed reality experiences like Mythic Realms, recognized by outlets such as Upload VR and Vice, while also partnering with brands including Meta, Google, Scholastic, Bose, and Burger King. Ryan's work lives at the intersection of studio sustainability, emerging technology, and creative culture, balancing client partnerships with original IP to build a long-term, healthy game studio. All right, so before we get into our subject today, I would love for our audience to get to know you a little bit better, Ryan. So how long have you been in the industry, and what project are you most proud of so far?
Sure. So I've been in the industry now over 11 years since we started the studio. We actually started right out of college. So my this was
Nice.
really my first professional job within games other than like internships prior. But and then gosh, for my favorite project. So it's tough because we've worked on so many different things, but I'd say near and dear to my heart is still the first game that we ever shipped as a studio, which was called Mind the Arrow, and it was a matching puzzle game, kind of like Simon Says, but like with a twist where like it would actually spin. And so it was like Simon Says, but also you had to like do spatial reasoning to determine how to line up the puzzle properly. And it was just
Okay.
a game that like went way beyond our ambitions as a studio of students right out of school, where we got featured on the front page of both app stores. We got a few 100,000 players. We got like people making YouTube videos of it. And it was a great way to like kick off as a bunch of college students, right? A few months out of school trying to start a studio to have a game that did that well. So that's still near and dear to my heart, and I'd call that my favorite.
I love it. The firstborn, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Awesome, man. So this is pretty much all you've done. You graduated college and university, and you just like went for it. And I can relate to that because that's literally exactly what I did. I was
Yeah.
actually did the was mine just I just focused more on like advertising design, but yeah, man, this is really cool. So what I wanted to kind of pry into with you is just kind of how to build a successful AR VR game studio. Like that's a specific niche. We haven't really talked about that much on the podcast. We've done a bit about gaming, a bit about game studios at large and creative studios and all the things. But what do you think are the kind of subtle nuances? What are the real things that differentiate what you need to do here versus another, a similar space?
Yeah. I think, I mean, first and foremost, you have to have some amount of interest and passion for it. I think that's like the first place to start with hey, we're going to focus the company around this niche is like, if you're not into
Passion.
it, Yeah, it's tough to go too far there. Um, but I think like the other part of it is how it worked for us is that we have a really technical team, I'd say. Like, I think each game studio is really driven by a particular department within the studio. So, like, a very audio-centric studio would make audio games. Art leads the vision of the studio, or it's very technical and programming heavy, and that's us. Like, we have a lot of engineers, all of our artists are tech artists. And so, a lot of what we do tends to focus more on the tech side of games. And that was where XR worked really well for us because it is this really emerging technical space that requires fairly strong engineering prowess, especially in the early days when we were starting, where a lot of the tools were more rudimentary. And so I think that like helped us too, was that we were interested in it and we had the expertise that we built up over time. I'd say the last thing is like we didn't go heads first into that space for a while. And I would say we still pitch ourselves as an emerging tech company still. We focus on games for new platforms. So we're interested in XR. We still do a lot in that space, but we're hesitant to just go like that is the entire thing Petricore focuses on because I think
Hmm.
unless we saw just insane success there that we were like, okay, that's it. Like we've got a game that's, if Mythic Realms made $50 million, I would be like, that's all we do. But
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I think like that also has helped us where like we did a lot of client work in the XR space before we decided to do some of our own original stuff there. And we started really small. Like our first few XR projects were the most simplest of experiences. And we just used those and slowly built up the complexity over time, which I think is the way also to get into any niche like this is like start with this the scope that is so small that you're like, this feels stupid that I'm trying to make this, but it's like it's the best place to start and learn. Um, so I think all those things factored into like helping us stand out in this space.
I love that. So you started this in 2015, and you guys started messing around with AR and VR back then, right? Like,
We did. We never really like took the full plunge, but like our second ever project as a company was for the Google Cardboard, which was like the VR headset that you'd slide your phone into and you could fold in.
yes,
Um, which if you ask people in the space, they either love or hate that because some people really like thought it sort of cheapened what VR could be, and other people were like it was incredibly accessible and lots of people got to experience VR. And I more
yeah.
am in that camp, but I think like we did a lot with that. We did some like game jam prototyping with like Oculus DK2. So we were always interested in it. I'd say though, VR on its own, we were always a little like, I don't know, it didn't, like I said, the passion wasn't there for us as a studio for just VR. Um, but then when mixed reality and augmented reality became more of a thing, we were like, oh, this is really interesting. We're actually excited about this in a way that we weren't with VR, where we see an opportunity here to make games that like you can blend with the real world, and how cool is that?
So cool. Actually, and I haven't played one of those yet, and mostly because my kid is always on his, so I'm gonna get in there. But sidebar, like, you know, every I ask everybody this with the VR space, but I got excited about VR. The first game that like really pumped me up was Beat Saber. Like,
Hmm,
I assume everybody that's into VR has put some time into Beat Saber. It's like the number one VR game still, I assume. So
I think so, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was just curious, what difficulty do you play Beat Saber on?
I have played it, but I am terrible at rhythm games. So I played
Okay.
it enough to know how it works, and but my ability to continue with it is limited.
All right, no judgment. Awesome. So, what strategic advantage do you think comes from the fact that you guys were building on an emerging platform before it was popular, and now you guys have stayed the space, you've learned all the things, you started slow, you started with little bites, and now I assume people can come to you. You guys are making XR games like that. That's for me seems like the highest level of difficulty in terms of technical execution.
Mm. Yeah, I think for us, like what drew us to wanting to focus more on it was also that just as an indie studio, we didn't have much of a focus for what we really worked on. We did a lot of like we did mobile games, we did PC, and we just kind of bounced around between different spaces. And one of the things kind of coming like in like 2020, 2021, I was just looking at that and feeling kind of down about like where we were as a company, more out of the like what are we building towards? And I think a lot of studios that do like a mix of their own stuff and work with clients ends up in this where it feels like you're on like this treadmill of like we're doing work to survive. I'm not really that passionate, I'm not that passionate about it anyway because we're just kind of doing stuff to survive. Like what are it's a lot of work to run a business. Like what are we building this business towards? Like what are our goals? And those weren't as clear. So we spent a lot of time thinking about that and figuring out like what do we want to do? Where are we building towards? And that was what like we looked at Steam, and a lot of us love to play indie games on Steam. But like we were worried about how do we stand out? Like there's thousands of studios like ours, and it feels like a
Yeah.
lottery. Like you're entering the Steam lottery. And not that there aren't things that you can do to try to stand out, and there are people who really successfully pull it off. But I think they're the ones that you often see, and there's a lot of studios that you never see that are the ones that just it never stands out. And we did games like that. And so I think for us, like that was what drew us to XR was we were like, we have expertise to build games like this. We're interested in this, and we see an opportunity here that not a lot of indie studios are going to be willing to pursue. And I think
Ooh.
that helped us really stand out. And that was where, like, one of our clients is Scholastic. We've worked with them on a book series of AR games in tandem with the books. And they reached out to us just from finding us talking about XR games. And so that was one where that was a project that would have never come our way. It was a dream project when they came to us, and
Yeah.
I think that was by the nature of us just focusing a bit more on that space. And we're in such a better place today than we would have if we hadn't. All kind of worries about what is happening in the XR space and games in general aside, we're better off as a studio today having made that decision than we would have been if we hadn't.
So there's two things that you've said here already that I've heard, and these theme through almost every time I've seen someone do something successful in a creative type of space, like games or studios or any of the kind of things, agency work, any of that. You passion for the work. You have to have that. You have to actually really like the thing you're trying to make, right? That helps you stand out. And then niche, right? Like you guys are a technology company who then worked into gaming, who then went into VR, then went into XR, right? And now your competition's this wide, where if you just drop a game on Steam, there's 20,000 of them coming out this year. But there's not 20,000 XR games coming out this year. So that in itself like allows you to corner a market and own that space. Now the other question comes in is like, is there enough finances in that market? But well, I think
Yeah.
in yours in specific in gaming, right? Because now you're siphoning off of just everybody that has basically an XR enabled headset. So it's a little broader than like just the people that do this type of gaming. And the Quest made, the Quest 3, I think made that more accessible. So yeah, I love it, man. You talked about earlier, like, man, if we sold 50 million worth of, Mythic Realms, like, and then I immediately was like, man, are there 50 million people available to consume an XR game? Or 50, like, and not even like, I don't know how much you sell the game for. Let's say it's like, you know, $50 a pop or something like, whatever that is. But those numbers, you probably know some of the numbers, but yeah.
Yeah, I think like publicly they've shared, I want to say that there's about 10 million active devices, at least on Meta's end. So it's a
Oh, cool.
reasonably healthy platform in terms of more users than I think someone who's like sitting on the sidelines watching VR would expect there to be.
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think there is a question of like currently what are those players doing in headset because there are since we started till now, this they call them gorilla likes, but there's a game Gorilla Tag that's incredibly successful.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I've been
I'm
playing it.
yeah, I'm sure you've
It's exhausting.
yep.
It's
So
just
yeah,
like you got to run around with your arms. Like, it's so crazy.
it's fun every time I like friends of mine that just still do like flat screen indie games on Steam in the Boston area, I'll talk with them And like when we were doing VR stuff, a lot of people were like, does anyone even play VR? And I was like, well, there's this game Gorilla Tag that's made $100 million in VR. And show them it, and they're like, what? And just can't like, wrap their head around like that as a concept. But it's spun out all these other games that are very similar in terms of the locomotion, that each kind of have their own unique spin on that style of movement. Um, and there are all these like multiplayer social free-to-play sandbox environments that like kids can play in with each. It's very kid-centric. I think for us, and this is where a lot of VR studios are at right now, is you kind of are trying to figure out like, okay, the passion comes back is like, are we passionate to try and compete in this space, or do we branch out and try and do something different in VR where maybe there isn't as much funding or player base right now to try and see if like we can carve out a different niche. And I think we're taking that path versus like we looked at that. It's very competitive right now, and it's again just not somewhere where the passion exists for what that audience is really needs. So but yeah, it's VR is a really interesting space right now. I think like all of games is in this sort of weird space, but yeah,
I love it, man. I keep thinking like I want to like when is there I want to like an active headset, right? That's like made for me to go for a run with. That's like lightweight
yeah,
that like I can like get power ups and like play, maybe gamify a run with my friends on a trail or like and like maybe there's like a Mario Kart-esque type of thing or almost like laser tag or I don't
yeah,
know like there's so many thoughts about how this could all come together, but it's just a really cool, and that's the idea of emerging tech, right? Like
yeah,
how much exciting things, how many ways can your creative brain apply this to in new ideas and new ways in life or in things that no one's even thought of. So
yeah,
super fun space, man. Cool. All right. So, how do you balance your client service work with developing original IP in a way that keeps your team creative and sustainable? This is a struggle a lot of us have. A lot of us are like, we got to do this stuff to pay the bills, and we're still passionate about, we still like it, but we want to be doing this, and we want this to pay all the bills, and then maybe we take these if we really like them, and it's a lot of money, and it like all the variables line up, like
yeah.
yeah,
It's that is like I actually ran a roundtable this year at the Game Developers Conference on this very topic because it was something that I was like, this would make for an interesting roundtable discussion.
yeah,
Um, and I think the consensus out of there was also we don't know. And so I think it's definitely a challenge and it's unique to like the company and the culture in the company and how you operate. I think that what ended up working for us that allowed us to do something like Mythic Realms was we had done a lot of our own games in the past that were I would say like always on the back burner or like got like pulled into the main slot, but like for a sprint, and then it would go back when just
right.
a client project came. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of like, well, we have this huge game we want to make. No one's willing to fund it, so we'll just sort of do it intermittently in between stuff when we have downtime. And that was a really bad way to make a game because there was a lot of stopping and starting and
Yeah, and you
context
lose
switching.
so much time there, like so much.
Yes, and so like by the time the sprint was over, like one thing was done, a bunch of new bugs were introduced that then someone was trying to fix like 3 months later coming back in. So it just did not work. And we came out of that and we're like, we won't do that again. If we build anything, it's going to be just building a proof of concept prototype that we can just go and pitch. And we won't touch it anymore. We're just going to build towards the pitch and the pitch deck and the thing that we show with the pitch deck. But beyond that, we won't do any additional work. Like we're not making the game, we're just making the pitch and the prototype demo that we'll show off. That was, I think, where finally things turned around for us, was where we Mythic Realms was that. We just heads down 3 months of just build a demo and showed it at GDC. And we really focused on the mixed reality for that. Like we leaned into like what is the cool stuff about this game that's hard and unknown, and how can we focus on that? Because I think that's another trap people fall into is they spend time making like UI menus and all these things that like they're like, yeah, we've seen this before. You don't need to prove it. what we needed to prove was, can we turn your room into an RPG dungeon that you go fight monsters in? Like that needed to
Yes.
be validated in some way. So we focused on that. We showed that to Meta and a bunch of other people. And that was really like what got the ball rolling in terms of getting Mythic Realms funding so that we could focus on it more full time. And that was always the end goal, was I was like, we need the money to support the staffing to focus on this. And so I think like that strategy of like invest our resources into the small scope demo, that was like fundable for us because we've been lucky that we had client work that had done well enough that I had cash to do it. But I could
Yep.
not have afforded Mythic Realms like on my own with just revenue from the studio. We'd still be working on it today.
Yeah. I did a similar thing. We were trying to launch our own comic, and like so we'd like taken like every Friday, and we'd kind of outlined episodes and concept characters and all of like the little things where you didn't need to like keep going back. You know, it's not as technical as what you guys were doing on a video game side, but then we did a sprint for like I want to say 3 weeks straight where we took no client work, and I just paid all my friends to to make a project,
Yeah.
which ended up not being directly like a good idea in terms like that project didn't pay off. Like Webtoons picked it up, which was cool, and they featured it, and we
Mm,
got a bunch of followers. But it just
yeah.
we ended up getting some offers that were like there was no way the we could even the offers we got were like they wouldn't fund us to actually be able to work on this anymore. So,
Yeah.
but it was a fun little experiment, and if we configured some things differently or worked maybe even a different medium, like might have could have taken that somewhere. But I think that's exactly the best play that I've ever heard of is squander a little money aside, a little bit of time, do all your pre-production stuff, the stuff where it doesn't have a lot of interaction with each other, and then yeah, do a sprint and get somebody to fund it. So like when
Yeah.
when I guess I assume Meta picked it up, right? Like how does that work? Do they take a slice of it, or they say you fund it and it's exclusive on our platform if they fund it, or like how does all that work?
Yeah. There's some specifics to working with them that are like under NDA with the agreement that
Sure.
you'd have in place. But yeah, they have Oculus Publishing, which essentially operates as a games publisher. Um, and so they're who a lot of studios doing VR content typically will work with. And
Right.
they essentially publish games under that umbrella for the Quest platform.
Okay. And their incentive is like, hey, hopefully we can make some money on this, but we might not make back our ROI on the like if they give you money and like I assume they take a slice, platform wise, and they're hoping eventually it pays them back and then some. But at the end of the day, if they don't have enough games on their platform, like they just need games. So I think that's the benefits them either way, I assume.
That's really the benefit of working with them over like a more traditional publisher because they're one is just they have an ungodly amount of money and like as just
Yeah.
Meta as a whole. And then the
Most
other thing is,
profitable ever
yeah,
this quarter, right before their layoffs. Anyway,
yeah. Um,
sorry.
I know. But yeah, they're like you said, they care about things other than sometimes the making money necessarily. Like if they have, like mixed reality is a good example of like that was a new feature on the headsets forthcoming, and they wanted
Correct.
content that showed those features off. We were all mixed reality devs. We were all in the same boat together with them. That was like none of us know if this is going to be a thing or not. Like we're all
Right.
obviously optimistic about it, but even Meta didn't know. Like, are people even going to want this? Let's see. And then like they're obviously doing research to make these decisions, but still, it's like until that product is out and you see usage on it, you really don't know. And that was where all of us doing mixed reality games lived for a while and no one was willing to take that bet other than them. Like we talked to a lot of more standard VR publishers, and we would have great meetings with them, and I like they were all receptive to trying out the game, seeing it in steps. But anytime we tried to discuss funding it, it was a challenge because again, we were in that kind of risky bucket of like we don't know how mixed reality is going to do. Like why would we
Yeah.
bet on this? Yeah,
And they're already in, right? Like they've already invested in the idea of having this on their headset. So now they really are invested in making sure that people like you that run studios like you do have a lesser barrier to entry so they can get some games out there. So that makes sense for me on the business side, right? And I think people could follow along with that. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
the interworkings a bit there.
Yeah.
Um, so, what does a healthy studio culture look like when you're trying to build something long term instead of like just chasing little trends? Like XR might go away, right? Like
Yeah.
basically Meta Quest is the only accessible platform where this is available for most people, unless you have like some super gaming rigs and all kinds of insane stuff. I don't know of any other comparable market level entry type of situation, although you might. But again, this could fade away and the next thing comes up. And then, so how do you balance that as a studio? Because I imagine you guys aren't just going to quit because you fully dedicated to this. Like you've said you haven't, right? So like, yeah,
Yeah.
talk me through some of that.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Like I think for us, that focus on emerging platforms helps give some stability. Like I think that's why like we haven't just said, okay, Petricore, we only do VR games on the MetaQuest platform as like just when you look at us, that's the only thing we do. Because I have I'm really excited about a lot of the future of like what this platform can do and the types of games you can make for it that you can't do anywhere else and the level of immersion that you can get. But I'm also nervous as I look at it. And just like you said, there's been a lot of layoffs, there's been a lot of reorganizations and changes. And I think I like this is speak to any VR developer. Like there's been a ton of VR studios that aren't here anymore from like when we started, just based on changes in the platform. So there's like a lot of concern right now alongside optimism about like where this could go. And so I think that is totally healthy. And if you're not feeling that way, you're living in some sort of like a house made of candy that like does not really exist. So
Yep.
I think for us, like that's where like we also look at other emerging platforms. Like right now, we're talking with other groups that have new hardware, new devices. They're looking to build games on them. And like I'm really excited and pursuing some things there while we're also working on a new XR title. And so I think like we're trying to just keep looking for what's new, what's interesting, where could we build cool stuff and game like fun games. That's really at the end of the day is like we just want to make fun games that people attach to. And we want them to be discovered, and we feel like latching on to some of these new platforms is a great way to increase discoverability where like we're one of the few games in town. I think that that's helped us a lot. And so we're just leaning into that in terms of staying stable as a studio and making sure that we have enough work coming in is how can we find other niches that we can kind of that maybe are tangential to some of the stuff that we've done with Meta, but could be a new opportunity for the studio. And we also we've been pretty good about like trying not to completely exclude some of the other client work that we do. So we do a lot of museum installation work. And even when we had Mythic Realms going, we still kept some of those projects going. We still took some new projects there just to kind of keep that thing alive. And so it's helped us at like this after Mythic Realms, we had some big installation work that we did that helped kind of bridge the gap after that came out. And so I think like not being too picky and trying to keep your options open, like we're sort of scrappy in that way, which works because we're a smaller team too. Like I think if we were a 200-person studio, like me focusing on small museum exhibits would be not ideal. But for us, it helps. It can bridge the gap sometimes when we have a shortfall or we need the money. So I think that helps a lot too, is not being there's a balance between not being picky and like taking bad projects, but I think like we try to find that balance.
Yeah, I totally get that, and that's the balance for sure as an entrepreneur with a small studio. What are some of the criteria? Like, obviously we don't want to, call anybody out in specifics, but like, what are some of the things that, end up being bad projects that, you think trying to avoid? Yeah, and I've got some thoughts too. I'm happy to chime
Uh,
in with, but
my favorite thing to ask most studios that do freelance work is like, tell me about some of the worst projects you've had. But yeah, I think like for us, what we ended up defining it as was we were like, the project needs to either give us um, like money or value. And we tried to define them in that way where it's like either we're doing the project because we can bill strong hourly rates for it, or like it's got a really good budget behind it. or it provides some value to the studio outside of the budget. So it's like, okay, the budget's really tight. It might not, we might break even on this, or our margins might be worse than we would hope, but it's a cool technology. It's something that we've really wanted to do. It's a client that would look great on our website, and we just want to get our foot in the door. Like
Yep.
I think it has to fit into one of those buckets. If like there's no value to this, like there's sort of like a no name, people wouldn't recognize it. It's not that exciting and it's not something new that we'd learn. Like if we can't define like what value are we getting out of this and they don't have any money, to me that's a bad project, right? For
Yeah.
us is how we define it. Um, and so we've taken projects that have been like really weird for us to take as a studio, but we've learned some really cool stuff. Like one example, we worked with the Palo Alto Research Center and Xerox on augmented reality applications for printer repair. And we worked on that for like almost 2 years. We used Unity and we did a lot of like really cutting edge XR work with them. And when I first got that project, I was like, the team's going to be like, Ryan, what the heck is this? Um, but they loved it, and people still reflect on like that. I really liked working on that project because it was this like technical problems that we were solving, and it was really clear what we were trying to do, and it was just interesting. And so like that was a project that was good value. Like a lot of what we learned ended up getting applied to Mythic Realms in some ways, which is not a traditional game dev thing where it's like, yeah, we did printer repair applications and then applied our learnings into making an RPG. But I think that's like an example of like that was a good project for us. Yeah.
I, that's super cool. And I love that. And you never know where, so like, don't, it's, what am I trying to say here? You can navigate something with your company and know that like I don't know exactly why we're doing this, but it feels like there's some value under the surface here that we never know how we'll be able to apply in the future, right? And all the little learning experiences, like it's like if you're a contractor, or if you've ever done any work on your house, right? Like like every time you figure out a problem, whether it's plumbing or framing or electrical or like they all start to stack on each other. And then when you go to do this next thing, it's like, oh, I remember when I did this that way with this thing. And then all these pieces start coming in randomly. And it just gives you more options, more tools in the tool belt. So I love that kind of creative exploration with your craft. And yeah, like when you set out to make the company, you're like, yeah, we're gonna do AR explainers through Xerox repair, printing repair like that. Like never that no like
Yeah.
more intelligent sentence version of that would have come out of your mouth probably ever. That was just like that's not a goal. That wasn't objective. But who knows what you learned from that? And it might have come up already, and it might come up in the future. There might be a sim game that comes up where you're like simulating technology things and like, oh well, remember when we were doing this for Xerox? There was this one little thing. You never know. So, anyways, I love that. So,
Yeah.
what's like the cool emerging tech you're seeing out there now? Is there anything on the horizon?
I think like we're really excited about a few different things. One is there's a platform called the Next Playground, NEX, and it's a new platform that is kind of filling the gap that the Nintendo Wii left behind, and also like the Microsoft Kinect and the Sony iToy. That's very old now, but like
I don't even
just these
remember
like
that.
yeah, like
The
these
thing with the little knobs
motion.
on it. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like these like motion-based physical games that like got you up and moving. Um, they're focused on that and they're really focused on kids. And so they have a really cool library of like branded experiences and games that use motion-based controls and get kids up and moving. And that's a platform that like we're looking at and we're really excited by because they've shared like they outsold I think both Xbox and PlayStation most recent Black Friday in terms of units sold. Um,
Wow.
which is yeah, like insane. And it's a game platform. It's affordable. It's also like very like child friendly, so parents can feel safer getting it. And it's also like they're playing games, but they're moving and getting exercise. And so I think they have a really compelling value offer to families.
Mhm.
And they're just this kind of new space in games that I think a lot of people are looking at with interest. But we're really excited about that because there's a lot of carryover from like computer vision in how they're detecting movement that like we learned from doing XR work. And so we're excited about that platform. There's also a platform called The Board. I think their website's just board.fun, but it's like a giant touch tablet that you can play board games and virtual games using like physical pieces on the board itself. And
Yeah.
that also like has some really unique stuff that it does with those pieces where I think a lot of people gravitate to just like, oh, it's like a board game and it can just keep track of data and stuff for you. But like they have some really interesting puzzle games that would not work as just a puzzle game and like a physical puzzle game and would not work just as a virtual game. Like it only works as a board game for their device that like uses both digital and physical pieces together in a really cool way. And that's another one that's like, oh, you can do stuff here that's just not been done yet before. There's interesting game paths to explore. So that's like another one that we have in the office. We've been playing with it. We're really excited by it. So
I
both
love
of
that.
those. And then of course, like there's interesting stuff
What's that
happening.
one called again? Sorry.
It's called the board.fun.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
It's
you were
it's
about to
you
say
can
something
also
else?
yeah, it's or the yeah, the and then of course just like we're also looking at some of the like AI tools that exist and how can we use those in our production processes and how does that speed up certain things. But that, I think that tied with games is kind of we see it more as like processes and tools and expediting things and like streamlining certain operations versus necessarily how do we like roll that into a game itself.
Yeah, I'm excited about potentially what does it look like in some of these immersive, like open world exploration games that like you build, almost procedurally generated expansion stuff, more or less how Minecraft does it, but like more in depth, more robust, actual NPCs, actual quests, actual things that just randomly come up that no one else is ever going to experience outside of this seed of this random, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That kind of stuff seems like it could be incredible. And my addictive gamer personality should probably never play the one that's actually really polished because you guys will never see me again. So
Yeah.
um that's really fun though. So I love to ask this question towards my guests. So how do you personally define the relationship between art and commerce in your company? And be honest, which one usually wins? So like what how do you prioritize like this needs to look this absolutely amazing way and this just needs to really function like this, right? Like in that dance, right? So
Commerce. We tend to focus on commerce, I'd say. Um, and I think for us, it comes to like we did an exercise on just the realities of well, what do we care most as a company? And we tried to organize it in terms of like what values are most important for us. And at the end of the day, the number one value for us was we need to keep clients happy and we need to keep the projects on time and on budget and make sure that we're delivering to the clients that we work for. And it was we really agonized between like because I was like we got to organize these. Do we care more about that or the we need to keep this a great place to work, a happy, safe team? Like, and I was like, it's really tough to like organize those two where you're like, no, we care a little bit more about this, but at the end of the day, it came down to we were like, this is the only way that we stay in business as a company. We could be the happiest, nicest group of people that treats every and that's like a close, close second to that, right?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, the reality that we live under in here is that we have to make money. We have to keep money coming in as a business. We have to keep our clients happy. And so I think we operate under like that shared reality of like that's the number one priority. And so we definitely are a little more commerce driven in that sense then than like, oh, we don't care if this doesn't make any money because we won all these awards for what we made. Like that is not the intent of the studio. We're not looking to create art that like tells a story. And I don't say that in any sense of like saying that like I don't appreciate the work that a lot of
of
people put
course.
in to do that. Like I think I appreciate a lot of that stuff. It's just not what we are because at the end of the day, we are just trying to operate as a business and make sure that we can make payroll and that everyone here can like, pay their mortgage and pay their bills. And that is the type of business that we want to be. We want to make stuff that really resonates with people too. Like we're not totally in the like we're obviously not making slot machines and gambling apps and like things, even though we've worked on some projects to pay the bills like that, but that's not what we spend our time on. So it's not that we're just purely in pursuit of like how can we just make money as a company. Like we still want to make really cool games that resonate with people, but also games that are financially viable and can make money in the end.
Yeah, I love that. And so I mean, a good strategy that I've always seen is just kind of like figure out the goal and the objective and make sure that that utility to achieve that goal is built into the foundation. And then with the remaining resources, you make it as beautiful as possible, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that for us kind of is how we do the dance over here. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So, whenever you're trying to ship something, like whether, it's launching a final product or a game or, even just like, yeah, I guess I don't, you probably don't do like a lot of campaign type of work, but like where does the process tend to break down and like the energy die? And what have you guys kind of done to mitigate some of that, that might help other directors or producers? So.
Hmm. I think the the probably most common place that I've noticed it happen is like I think I've heard it referred to as like the mesa of misery on a project, which is where, there's the excitement started to die down of the early days of like this is new and we're figuring stuff out and there's all that excitement and you're just sort of working towards a shippable version of it. And I think that's when it starts to be this sort of stagnant, like stuff starts to slow a bit and you're just like trying to fix bugs alongside get small incremental improvements on the product. And I think the thing that we've tried to do to make that better has been more playtesting of the game, like taking time to step back and play it. We
Mm,
try to encourage people to take time off and step away from a little bit from it. I think that's huge. Like I think any problem, it's helpful to step away for a bit and come back refreshed. And I think like the last thing with that um, is just acknowledging that people are there. There's like something in that of just like, hey, aren't we all kind of feeling this way right now?
yeah.
And like even just talking about that, like I think that is honestly one of the more helpful things you can do in that situation is like we've had moments where it's like I could tell that like the vibes were off on the project, like people were down for certain reasons and just having a meeting where it's like how's everybody feeling about this project, right? Like be totally honest. What are you worried about? What are you excited about? And trying to just like I feel like sometimes just people like sharing, I'm worried about it for these reasons, but also I see why everyone's excited can help kind of get everyone out of that funk. And so we've tried to do that where like you just sort of pick up on when something's starting to slide a bit and leaving room for like a meeting to just talk about feelings um is really helpful, I found.
I love that, and that's excellent leadership, man. Emotional intelligence, as it is,
Mm,
just helps people just not feel isolated. And there's something about just talking about a thing, and someone else also is experiencing that, and like, oh, okay, we're grinding through this, this grind here together, and like, and that feels like it's less burdensome for some reason,
yeah.
even though you're doing the exact same thing. It's just, I think how human beings are wired. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Well, this episode has gone extremely fast, and that seems like a good place to roll into our final question here. But is there anyone or anything in your career that you would like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a mentor, valuable resource, or a favorite client?
Mm. Oh boy. Well, first and foremost, I'd say like the Petricore team, like we've have had the same founding group for the longest, like since we started, and a lot of employees within the company have been there for like 5 years, or like we've had strong retention within the team and people who've stayed and helped contribute to our success. So that they're first and foremost who I would thank. But I think like a mentor of mine that really helped. even just get us off the ground was Monty Sharma, who had been a serial entrepreneur. He'd started a bunch of businesses, and was working at a group called Mass Digi. They were a local program that tried to grow the games industry in New England, and they ran a summer internship program, which is how I met him, and we became very close. And he was the one who encouraged me to start a studio right out of college and do this crazy thing that I would have never, like this, my life would not be where it is without him pushing me. And I think that's like I meet with him pretty much every other week still, and we keep in touch, and he still gives me advice to this day and helps kind of pull me out sometimes when I'm, like I don't know. Um, so I think just having someone like that when you're trying to run a business is huge. And so yeah, I can't encourage that enough for other people, but also like he's who I would give a huge shout out to because we wouldn't exist if it weren't for him.
Oh, well, hell yeah. Shout out to Monty Sharma, because that's amazing, man. That like
Yeah.
he literally changed your life. And
Yeah.
that's what those kind of things are for. And that's really beautiful. I had no idea you started that way. Glad I
Yeah.
asked for that and you shared. So cool. All right. So I also want to give a little acknowledgement to LinkedIn, which is an amazing place to network. And that's how we got connected. I keep saying this, but someone from LinkedIn will see this eventually. You guys can sponsor the podcast. We would love that. So, anyways, so we've been talking to Ryan Canuel. You can check him out at Petricore Games. But if listeners would like to follow up with you directly, where should they go?
Yeah, so they can on the Petricore Games website, we do have a form that anyone can fill out, and that goes directly to me so I can see that. But you're also welcome reach out. My email is just ryan@petricoregames.com. Shoot me an email or reach out on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And Petricore is spelled Petricore, games.com. So awesome. All right, Ryan. And then it looks like we had a little end of show shout out here. Did you something called Project Death Game? What is this? Is this a new game you're building or?
Oh yeah, so Project Death's game, it's our latest game that we're working on. It's a VR card battler game, and so basically a lot of us grew up playing and watching Yu-Gi-Oh and loving it and always wanting that to be a real thing that you could go and do. And so that we've been building that, and we've done a few posts on socials that have done really well, and it's something we're still in the very early stages of, but we're starting to work on that. So if that sounds interesting, you can follow along on our website or any of our social platforms.
Love it. It definitely sounds interesting for sure. So awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, Ryan. We'll put links to all that in the show and in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on the show. And to everyone else, if this episode sparks something for you, share it with a friend or colleague, and we will see you all next time. Thank you. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.